Welcome to the Concord Housing Roundtable. Thank you all for coming in person, and for those on the Zoom. We have the potential for having a six board joint meeting. So just the potential, but we're gonna see who has a quorum here. So we'll start with the Housing Authority. We have all the chairs of the boards here, so we're gonna go through each one of those to open the meeting there, and then we'll come back and do introductions and move through the agenda.
Okay. Officially open the meeting for the CHA, Concord Housing Authority. Take a quick roll call. Stephanie Kroback here. Rick Eifler.
Here.
Ed Larner.
Here.
Stephen Bader.
Here.
Got a quorum. Thank you.
And then the CHGC.
Good evening, I'm Lee Smith, I'm the chair of the Concord Housing Development Corporation. We've got Julie McClure here in attendance. We may have one other, by Zoom, but I do not see him at this time. So if he arrives, we'll awkwardly convene that.
Okay, Matt Johnson of the Select Board, and we actually do have three members, one on Zoom and one person in addition to me. So, Mary Hartman, can you identify yourself?
Mary Hartman.
And then Linda Escobedo on Zoom.
Linda Escobedo.
Okay, and then myself, Matt Johnson. I should also mention that we have a former Select Board member and a future Select Board member in the audience. So that I think gives us 5.
Keith Bergman, Chair of the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, and we do have a quorum present. I'll start in the room. Mike Lawson, present. Rich Feely, present. Keith Bergman, present. And on the Zoom call, Linda Escobedo.
Linda Escobedo, present.
All right, so we have 4 members present. Carrie LaFleur, also one of our members, is not able to come tonight, but Deputy Town Manager Megan Sabuto is here on Zoom covering the meeting. So welcome.
Hi, this is Stephanie Kroback from the Concord Housing Authority. I just want to mention to Charles Phillips. I wasn't sure if he's actually on Zoom.
I don't see him
No.
yet unless he has a pseudonym for a name.
His name is Charles. Okay. Anyways, I just wanted to mention that we were hoping he was going to be here tonight. His last meeting as a member of our board. So I just wanted to recognize him.
He's been Diane Proctor's chair of the CPC, and he's been a wonderful addition to the CPC. He provides so much information and perspective. So,
She'd stay with the room.
Call her group to order.
where I think I'm it. I can't read because my eyes are dilated, so I have no idea who's there on the Zoom. So
We may have a lot of future CPC members.
I think we probably shall, but I don't see someone right now who is presently in the meeting.
There's Nancy?
Nancy Nelson?
Nancy Ricey.
Okay, terrific. And Eve is there, it looks like? Terrific. Well, that's 3 of us, but it does not quorum me. So thank you all for
I think
joining
people are
us.
having problems hearing. I see Linda Escobedo and Pam Dripp's phone hands up.
Yes.
The challenge is in order for the Zoom people to hear, we've got to be talking into that chair.
Is it this is Linda Escobedo. Is it possible to move that central
It is on a chair. I don't know because it's on the cart. I'm going to have to move the cart. So hang on.
So, great. It's funny that you're there, but you're coming in here, right? So we have quorums from the Housing Authority, the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, and the Select Board, is what I heard. We didn't hear from the Planning Board. Are there members from the Planning Board here? Linda?
Yes, Sue Felsham, present on Zoom.
Okay, so that's two. So glad you're here, but you're not a part, right? So on, I will take minutes that can be shared for all the groups, one set of minutes for everybody. So, well, great. So again, welcome. Glad you're here. I wanted to just start by paying a little tribute to our dear technical assistant, Marcia Rasmussen. This is sadly Marcia's last housing roundtable, unless we want to persevere and have one in May. I've worked with Marcia for many years now. I think that, we're going on almost 15 years of working together, and we've done many of these housing roundtables together. We've done many things, and I know I'm not alone. And Concord certainly wouldn't be the town that it is without Marcia's hands. And I'm sure as she drives by, she could say, this park, this building, this development, this here, and there's probably not a neighborhood in Concord that she hasn't impacted in a most positive way for her land use and community skills. So thank you so much for your years of service, and we'll miss you so much.
Thank you, Liz.
You're okay, so we're going to return it over to Keith. And he's going to walk through, I think what we're going to use as a structure for the meeting for each group to talk about, it's really to share all of the housing updates, what's going on for the different groups, and we'll use the housing production plan implementation strategies, which really talk about all the housing initiatives in that kind of structured way. And certainly from each group's perspective, if you're working on something that wasn't captured on a strategy, I don't know how that could be because there's 24 of them, right? So, but if you happen to have found a strategy in the last 3 or 4 months that's not on this list, please do talk about it. This is really an opportunity. I want to recognize that we're being televised, filmed, so that we can preserve this, and it's of general community interest, of course, what's going on with affordable housing. We have a great opportunity to bring all these boards together so we can share the totality of what's happening in this area for Concord. So we want to use that for every group to share, and also to solicit support from each other and the people here for the projects, both as they come forward in town meeting, as well as hearings, public sessions, and whatever other kinds of help that we could do for the general mission or strategy or direction for affordable housing in Concord.
Thanks very much, and let's of course recognize Liz Russ, our Director of the Regional Housing Services Office, who organizes us all and has been doing great work in housing, not only in Concord, but in any town nearby that you can think of. And we're so appreciative of the expertise that she brings to bear for all of us every day. So thank you, Liz, and you get a round of applause.
I'm not going anywhere. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
And at the end, we're going to move that we have a meeting in May, but I thought of it, but anyway. But well, welcome again to this is the expanded Concord Housing Roundtable. Because the housing production plan that was recently updated, it was approved by unanimous vote of the Select Board and the Planning Board in December, and it was then approved by the State Department of Housing, what they currently call the Department of Housing and Community Development, in January. So we have an approved and updated 5-year housing production plan. And one of the strategies, it's number 22 of the 24 strategies, deals with this housing roundtable, which is a sort of a unique institution to Concord, where the many boards and committees and groups that deal with housing get together on a regular basis to try to share what they're doing and to coordinate and strategize. And so with the housing production plan, to say some coaxing and support from the select board and others, that we're taking it up a notch by saying it's not just the housing group, it's the town leadership, the select board, planning board, community preservation committee, all of the housing groups are going to help monitor progress and implementation of the strategies in the housing production plan. Those strategies, I think, come in probably two categories. One is financial, and the other isn't. And we spend a lot of time focusing on the money that we need to appropriate in town meeting, or get from state agencies, or even get from the state legislature, get authority to have dedicated funding sources, or use community preservation funds, whatever it might be, for housing. But that's just part of the picture. That even if we had an endless supply of money, which we don't, that there has got to be the regulatory side. There has to be the development community. The market itself has to produce affordable housing in order to make it so. So it seemed like a great opportunity in putting together a strategy that all of the current office holders, all of the current board members could commit to, and then to commit to work together to carry them out. And I appreciate very much the leadership of the select board and bringing us all together, and well supported by current, I guess I could say current and future town staff, but that we appreciate the commitment of the town to support this effort. So as a guide, what we're looking to do is we'll pass the microphone, open mic night, pass the microphone to each of the chairs up here for them to debrief on what their committees have been doing, what affordable housing initiatives they've been pursuing or thinking about, and to the extent possible, reference which goals or strategies those are in the housing production plan. Some of the boards, if they have housing in their name, or probably everything they do shows up here, and those that don't have housing but wish they did, the chief housing policymakers, the select board, really, and chief policymakers for everything the town does. We're delighted to have them be part of the process along with all of you. So if it's helpful, I thought, since I did a written update, which I already shared with the select board for their packet back on March 20th, and I should mention, by the way, that the matrix that I circulated to the chairs before the meeting reflects input from the select board meeting on the 20th of which particular board. There are so many boards to keep track of, even ones that are not up here, but others, the Public Works Commission, the Transportation Advisory Commission, the DEI Commission. There are others, town staff, particular assigned town staff, lots of moving parts here, and we don't have a steering committee for implementing the plan. We did have a steering committee that some of us were on for working to develop the updated plan, but I think we're sort of a committee of the whole right now, that all of our committees here are committed to working together. So just as an example, if nothing else, I'll give mine first on behalf of the trust, because we do have housing in our name, and we've been doing a lot of work on that topic. And just to share with you that, and I'll start with the money, which is filing of home rule petitions with the state legislature to fund the trust. As you're aware, January town meeting voters overwhelmingly approved refiling those home rule petitions for building permit surcharge and real estate transfer fee. Those have been, all have been sponsored by our legislative delegation, Representative Cataldo and Gentile and Senator Barrett. They've been referred to committee, but no public hearings have been held. There are also two statewide bills that we want to make sure that folks are aware of. We are, as Concord, is part of the LOHA coalition. That's the local option for housing affordability. It consists of the dozen or so communities that have each filed a home rule petition for a real estate transfer fee for housing, as well as other communities that are supportive of there being a statewide local option for such a mechanism. And Rich Healy is on the board of directors for LOHA and works with that group and other communities, not only on the statewide bill that LOHA has itself submitted, but there's another bill which has been filed by the state senator for the Cape and Islands, which may end up being a form that the state chooses to go with. The Senator Sear had a room full of islanders at an event at the State House, and the Senate President, if you read tea leaves, did she nod, did she wink, did she give him a thumbs up? We don't know, but that if in the case of Concord, we might have three opportunities to get a real estate transfer fee: our own bill, the LOHA bill, or Senator Sear's bill. So it's worth our being aware of what's out there. I want to thank Rich for his efforts in working with LOHA on it. Other financial articles. And for this, I'm grateful not only to the Select Board, but to the Community Preservation Committee for thinking of the trust. And we have two articles that are coming to the April 30th annual town meeting, Articles 28 and 29, which would collectively transfer some $2,044,000 from prior appropriations at town meeting for the Christopher Heights project, which is not going forward, but to ensure that those funds are continue to be used for housing. The CPC and the Select Board have submitted articles which would direct those funds to the trust to be used for affordable housing purposes, and as we've been saying in the presentation that we made for the Finance Committee and would make to town meeting, that what would we do with the money? Well, which would bring our balance to about $3 million. It's the look at the list of projects that are in the housing production plan, and we'll have other folks around the table talking about Ascot River Bluff, Junction Village, acquiring other property that might be available, or expanding housing authority property. So those are the things that the Trust has been up to. We're also in the process of updating our policy guidelines and our application process that we adopted a set of interim guidelines a year ago, which were approved by the Select Board. What's changed is that the housing production plan has been adopted, and we're having an infusion of $2 million into the fund for a total of $3 million. We're going to adopt a set of what I'm thinking we might call the interim guidelines 2.0, which would say, all right, what are we going to do with a $3 million balance in light of the adoption of the housing production plan? And the answer is simple. We're going to look at the projects that are listed in the housing production plan, and we're going to be working with all of you to make sure that any use of those funds is what collectively we want to do. So I want to thank everyone for supporting affordable housing. Very grateful to the voters for their support, and glad that our Articles 28, 29 currently, they're proposed for the consent agenda for town meetings, so hopefully they can get passed as a first order of business. And thanks very much for the opportunity and update. And who would like to volunteer to go next? Please. Yes. This is Lee Smith, CHDC's, where the money would be going. So.
All of the money.
So, for those who can hear on the microphones, I'm Lee Smith, I'm the chair of the Concord Housing Development Corporation. So just referring first to the housing production plan implementation sheet. Obviously, items 1 being Assabet River Bluff and item 2 being Junction Village are CHDC's primary focus at the moment. We hold title to both of those properties. And I'll get into a summary of where we are about that in a second. I'll say just more generally, we're really interested in every single one of these 24 strategies in some way or another, some more specifically and intensely than others, but the CHDC's mission is to preserve and create affordable housing. So whether it's existing properties or any properties that become available, we're always looking for more opportunities to preserve and create affordable housing. And what is the primary stumbling block in front of that? Just speaking for myself, it's money. Using one example, the Christopher Heights project at Junction Village, which is not moving forward, over a number of years, the town had agreed to provide that project with approximately $2 million in local subsidies. That would have created 83 units on the affordable housing list, which they call the SHI. And that particular project was for seniors for assisted living. And because of turn of the economy, COVID, et cetera, the state required all developers who were applying for state funding to go back to their local municipalities and ask for additional funding. So at the end of last year, begrudgingly, the Christopher Heights developer did exactly that and asked for an additional $1 million. So for those 83 units, that would have been $3 million. And for reasons that I'll leave to others, that was not acceptable to the town, and the developer decided to move on, and that project's not happening. Just by comparison, other communities in our immediate geographic region are spending literally tens of millions of dollars on far fewer units to create affordable housing than that 83. So my point really is, the $3 million to the trust, if that goes forward, that's great. CHDC is going to have asks from them for the future of Junction Village and Assabet River and whatever else may come forward. But there are going to be asks from them for other projects that CHDC doesn't have any involvement in, which is totally fine, but it's a limited pot of money. So I just don't want anyone to be surprised as this goes forward, and hopefully there's more momentum being gained to create more affordable housing, about the cost associated with that. So be ready, because it's going to be a real number. Just as an example, we've had one developer approach CHDC in the town for the Junction Village site. That developer is proposing 40 to 50 units, and they estimated, just back of the envelope numbers, that they'd be looking to the town for $5 million of assisted financial assistance. That's for 40 to 50 family housing units, compared to the 83, which would have been $3 million. So I just want everyone to really be aware and keep that in the front of mind, that there's going to be asks for money down the road. With that said, I'll just give you a brief update on our actual project. So Junction Village, as I just alluded to, we had been approached by one developer, and because of that initiative, we have been we've met with a number of local boards to seek input, answer questions, try to address concerns. We've met first with the Winthrop Street neighborhood community. We met with the DEI Commission folks. We met twice with the West Concord Advisory Committee. And we met with the League of Women Voters. And on April 26th, we're going to be holding a community-wide public forum at the main branch of the public library, April 26th, from 6:30 to 7:30. Everyone's welcome. We will give a brief presentation that will be similar to what we've said at the other meetings, answer as many questions as we can, and listen to as much community feedback as we can receive. I will say, based on the meetings that we've had so far, the consensus seems to be gathering around family housing for the Junction Village site, which is fine. As a board, CHDC has not taken a position as to what the use of that site should be, but I will remind everyone that the deed came from the state Department of Corrections. It restricts the use of that property to only affordable housing and open space purposes. Those are the only two uses we can put there. And we're committed to keeping the open space component on it, but we want obviously affordable housing to fit there as well. So we haven't ruled anything out, but after this next public forum, we expect to put out a request for proposals that will address what we've heard from the community in terms of concerns about, we've heard primarily about traffic, access, density, and other similar impacts on the community. So we'll be mentioning all those and looking for developers to give thoughtful responses on that with respect to what they might want to put there. Probably expecting that to go out in May, and to be determined how we'll probably give at least a month for developers to respond, and then a whole process to evaluate what comes back, and we'll take it from there. But it will be a competitive, open process. No decisions have been made on the future use of that. Turning to the Assabet River Bluff project, just as a reminder, there's one structure there now, which is a 2-unit building, home, 2-family home, if you will. One of the units is occupied, one is not, and the remainder of the land, the 1 acre, is going to be developed with 3 additional units of single-family housing. We've been working on concept plans for that over the past number of months, and we're leading, as of literally this morning, maybe creating a single condominium with multiple phases to bring that in, and we want to get the 2 existing units on the subsidized housing inventory, or SHI, as soon as possible. We've been in discussions with the Concord Housing Authority for them to take ownership of that duplex, if you will, and then also to help us with the management of the condominium, which would include all 5 units. So we're proceeding with that in due course, and we're hoping to file an application for a PRD, or planned residential development, in the next month or so that will accelerate that. So we're really doing both of those projects on a parallel path and moving as diligently and thoughtfully as we can on both of those. Other than that, we hear through the grapevine and other sources that maybe this parcel becomes available, maybe that one, and we're always interested in new opportunities, and certainly open to anything that might enable the town to put additional units on the SHI, or even affordable units that may not qualify, but still help in general to increase the accessibility to Concord. So, but again, it takes money. So, thank you all for coming.
All right, I think I'll just go ahead and take it from here since I'm sitting right here. So, Matt Johnson for the Select Board. I do want to acknowledge, just based upon what Lee said, that certainly many in the affordable housing community were disappointed at the decision that the developer took, but also, I think, aided by the impressions that he got from the Select Board not to move forward with that project. And so while that was a great disappointment, and from a strictly from a numerical SHI perspective, it is certainly a very cost-effective project in that respect. It did give us an opportunity to re-examine Concord's strategy for affordable housing. And I think that there has been a reset, and I think to some degree, the process has been reinvigorated as a result. So while it may cost a little more, we may get projects that may, suit those objectives even better. So one example, of course, is that notion of family housing, in a site like Junction Village, where there's local shopping, there's a rail trail right there, there's access to the commuter rail, and none of those things would really be of primary interest or use to the assisted living site. And so, there is an opportunity, if there's family housing at that site, to take advantage of all those things. And also just help increase the vibrancy of West Concord Village at the same time. There also have been some small victories, if you will, that certainly Habitat for Humanity has brought one unit online already on Main Street, and then there's another, two, that's right, it's a duplex. 2 units online at Main Street, and then there's another small house, I think it's adorable, going up on Commonwealth Ave. I mean, it's really fantastic, and I want to tip my hat to Rich over here. I think we had a hand in that thing coming to fruition at last, after, again, we had some startup troubles at the beginning trying to get that funded at a reasonable rate. There are other opportunities that we're pursuing, and the select board has reviewed, for example, on Main Street, very close to where that duplex is that the Habitat for Humanity put up, closer actually to Route 2, if you can believe it, is a parcel that could potentially be turned into a small PRD. And now there's some work to be done with the state in order to convey that property, but it looks very promising. And so these are small things. They're not going to get us out of the position that we're in right now, which is most likely, though the numbers haven't been published yet, somehow, from the 2020 census, that will probably show us being below our 10% benchmark that we've set for ourselves, and certainly the state sets. But there are paths forward here, and I think as well, there's the MBTA communities zoning. And, while I don't have any specifics on a project, we have re-looked at the MBTA opportunity. And, for example, while there was resistance last year at town meeting around the Thorough Depot area, and I do hope that we can overcome resistance in that area, because that area still does need redevelopment, I believe, and could be a great site for a mixed use, including housing. The area around Baker Ave is another one where there could be a significant redevelopment that could occur, and that would be in concert with what the MBTA Act, is seeking. And so again, it's way too early to talk about any kind of specific projects there, but in terms of us trying to establish a district in which such a development can be contemplated, it does look very promising. And the Assabet River Bridge, footbridge, would be key to making that really, truly livable and work. And indeed, that's, in the offing, so it could all come together in a very nice way eventually. So those are, from a project's perspective, then the other things that we as a select board are involved in is, for example, the notion of green zoning or green development practices for affordable housing, because just because a unit is affordable shouldn't mean that it's not green. And so the board has voted to recommend affirmative action on Article 23 that would be to adopt the specialized stretch energy code that would apply to all residential construction, new residential construction. So it would effectively mean all electric buildings. And with our municipal light plant, that also means green energy. So that's very positive. We've also been pressing our state legislators for their work on some of these local options to provide a more sustainable funding stream for affordable housing. Because right now we have made ongoing efforts to raise funds through town meeting actions, and through CPC, but they are not at the scale that we will need, I think, to achieve our goals. So I guess I'll stop there because certainly there's a lot more people that need to talk, but I just wanted to highlight a few items from the slide.
Thanks very much, Matt. And I know another one of the issues that's on the select board's plate is the sewer infrastructure. So I'm sure you want to.
Well, I mean, not that we have any answers ourselves. I mean, this is not up to us, but certainly, we are aware of the limitations on the town's development generally, not just residential development, but general development issues due to the limits of our wastewater capacity. So, we've certainly encouraged efforts to try to either get permission to process more, but eventually it may also mean capital investments. So that still very much falls in the air. But let's just say that I can only speak for myself, but I can say that reading the kind of body language of my cohort of members, they're very favorably inclined to solve this problem.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. And I'm going to pass it to our Housing Authority Chair, Stephanie.
Thank you. Real quick, I just want to mention, I think the infrastructure comment, Matt, that you mentioned in the sewer system, I think that's actually a part of the housing production plan. There might be a strategy in here.
There's a strategy, but
related.
Is there a ability?
Right. I wanted to make note that that's duly noted in our strategy.
Yeah. And there are some tricky backdoor ways that people are looking at to try to help.
Yeah. Just wanted to let you know it's a strategy. So housing authority, I think the way for me to give an update on our progress to date as it relates to the housing production plan is actually start with a broader, just a quick broader view of the housing authority and sort of what I would consider sort of 4 or 5 key areas, or our priority areas, and sort of what we do. And I think the first thing to start with is to mention that operational excellence and sort of the administration of our current units and homes are a priority for us. And what that means is we are property managers in many ways. We have a staff. We work on making sure that our homes are safe and presentable for our residents. And so that's really the first thing I want to make sure that folks understand about our work. Not necessarily part of the housing production plan, but certainly a big priority for the board, for the team under Jennifer Polito's leadership, our executive director. The second priority for us, I would say, is development. Really looking at where of our existing properties or existing areas where we could build incremental new homes for folks and working with folks around the table to make that happen. I've been on the board now almost 2 years, and I can tell you that we are proud and happy to under Rick Eifler's leadership, one of our commissioners, to have the Habitat for Humanity little house on Common Ave. And I can also tell you that the folks at Habitat for Humanity, our leader, the gentleman we work with, has said that that's actually the first house in collaboration with the Housing Authority for the country. So that's the first time they've actually worked with the Housing Authority to make something like that a reality. So we are in Concord creative and smart, and have a lot of ways, I think, to get some of our priorities realized, our dreams realized. I think we just need to make sure we leverage that creativity. And we're, as I said, we're sort of continuing to look for places where we can actually build new homes. The third area that I think is important for folks to understand, and it relates to, I think there is something in the housing production plan about this, and that is resident services. So what do our residents, the Housing Authority, need in order to be happy and of well-being in our units? And that could be services in terms of getting to your doctor's offices. It could be access to food or how to get certain places, guidance about their, what benefits they have in terms of health benefits and other things. So there are a whole host of things that we do related to their needs. And I think it's important as we look at incremental new housing in general, what certain populations may need from us as a town. And we, the Housing Authority, I think we're a microcosm of that. You can look at what we do and really see if there are ways to translate that as we grow our affordable homes. The fourth thing relates to community relations. That's a priority for us, and it's really essentially about meetings like this and being part of the Housing Roundtable, and also advocacy. Advocacy for our world, the housing world, vulnerable population world, at a local level, a state level, and a federal level. And I can tell you, in my last 2 years so far, we've done that very thing. So, and just to mention, that is also a priority in the housing production plan, or a strategy. So just to kind of close out what I want to say, we own one strategy in the housing production plan, and that is to conduct an analysis to create new units on Concord Housing Authority property, and we are doing just that. And as I mentioned, in addition to the work we did on Comm Ave, Rick Eichler, our commissioner colleague, is actually on point taking the lead for that strategy. The other two strategies that we are a part of is housing collaboration, which I talked a little bit about, and I think we are watching that in action today. And then the third one is strategy number 24, foster outreach and education about local and regional affordable housing needs through a positive public relations campaign. And frankly, I'd like us to put that on overdrive if we could. So I'm going to end with that. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stephanie. Next, I'm going to call on I think of all the groups represented up here, the largest amount of public funds used for housing comes from our next group, the Community Preservation Committee. So, Diane Proctor, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Keith, and thank you all very much. I think it's a privilege to be here and to represent a really remarkable committee who takes their work and their study of each project that's presented to us with great seriousness. And I've learned so much from the work that this committee does. Matt, I have to take you on something. And I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but when you say perhaps the use of the Christopher Heights land might be even better, I want to remind us that we've lost an opportunity to support our gracefully aging population where the needs remain acute. And I hope as we go forward and think about the use of affordable housing and land, that we pay attention to that need. because for so many people, this continues to be a pressing interest. The CPC, which I represent, really is a partner with each of these organizations sitting up here. And from them, I have learned so much. When we were working on the Assabet River Bluff project, it was Lee Smith who held our hand and helped us to understand how we could partner with them. And Keith Bergman did the same and helped us discern the most equitable and effective way of working with the trust. And as a maven on the CPC board, in the CPC board, which he is, he was also able to guide us in terms of figuring out, how we might do that. Then Liz Russ and her crew came and figured out a way to forge an alliance that allowed the Assabet River Bluff project to meet 2 of the 3 goals of the CPC. And those 3 goals are, but I'll name the first 2 that came together. Open space and recreation is one, and the second is affordable housing. And the confluence of those 2 came together in the Assabet River Bluff project. And the CPC is again this coming year hoping that the town will vote to let us give some more money to continue the work that Lee and his community are doing. It is always disappointing when there's a plot of land where we can't build 12 affordable houses. But we live in a community, and by living in a community, we have to take into account the many needs of neighbors, traffic, patterns, all the other things that impact and affect a neighborhood. And one of the things we learned last year when putting the Assabet River Bluff project together was the importance of attending to neighborhoods, listening to them carefully and working with them creatively so that we could go forward in a way that was both satisfactory, not perfect, but satisfactory, and at the same time met the needs of the neighborhood, which already has traffic problems and concerns. And so this was really a collaboration in so many ways. The CPC also supports, of course, the work of historic preservation. And so, but that's really less a part of what we're talking about here. The Habitat for Humanity home, which we've been celebrating, was originally funded by the CPC, that project. And then we discovered we hadn't given them enough money to build that particular modest home. But then in the resources and the cleverness of putting together Habitat for Humanity, the town was able to build that home, which is an enormous success. I hope that the CPC going forward will continue to partner with these organizations, because it's by working together that we solve the most pressing housing issues in our town, because there are many, and to not attend to them is, I think, highly irresponsible. So thank you very much.
Well, I guess I'm establishing the left flank here. I'm also representing the only non-governmental agency here, the Concord Housing Foundation, and we are an independent 501c3. We have traditionally had 2 functions, one of which is education and advocacy for affordable housing, and the other has been raising money for affordable housing. Most recently, we put $100,000 into the housing portion of Assabet Bluffs, and hopefully 50,000 of that is being used to move forward until the money comes through from the community preservation allocation with some of the initial planning. We also participated in the purchase of the prior Habitat project for 2 units at 930 Main. And I want to give credit to our former president, Terry Rothermill, who, when the town was acquiring the Giroux land and planning to tear down the house, stood up and said, there's an agreement you've got to consider affordable housing as well as open space and land acquisition. So I don't guess we're going to call it the Rothermill House, but we ought to. So where are we going forward? Well, one of the things we recognize is that the traditional role we've had, which is being able to come up with modest sums of money outside the town budget annual meeting process could accelerate projects. And over the last 20 years, we put about $1 million into a variety of projects, some with the Housing Authority, some with CHDC and elsewhere. And our other function is advocacy and education. We recognize, given the numbers that are being talked about tonight, that we are not going to be in a position to be as significant a funder unless there's a specific project, and we are certainly willing to go out and try and raise money for a portion of that. But we recognize that the trust is going to be the major bang for affordable housing here. We are pushing ahead on advocacy and education. We have a website, believe it or not, it actually looks pretty good. Concord Housing Foundation. I was way too old to learn how to build a website, but I did things to make it. We issue a newsletter twice a year in which we try and cover some of these issues and get them out to the people on our mailing list. We'll certainly have something at town meeting in support of Article 35, which we see as positive. And we're making an effort to reach out to other groups. Obviously, the first real action there, I think, and we all collaborate in town, sort of, but was with the conservation groups around Aspen Bluff. But we're looking to have links to environmental, climate, open space, elders, and others, because I think we share those. And, you know, that takes some time that our civil servants and other boards need to be focused on actually getting some projects done. So in the longer run, we hope to build on that ability to communicate and make it better and try and see if we can pull some other groups into support or stronger support for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just would quickly add that there is an article in the town warrant this time that transfers $1 million+, which you've already mentioned, Keith, over to the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, which I know they will use to good effect.
I just wanted to respond to one thing that Diane said about supporting seniors, and that did remind me of one other initiative that the select board has taken and is further considering other action, which is that it's not the capital A affordable housing, it's the small A affordable housing, which is, you know, Concord's a town that uses a property tax to fund its operations, and as our budgets have continued to increase, the pressure on those that don't have a lot of funds, and particularly seniors, has increased, and a lot of times they're in modest homes that might be torn down and replaced with larger homes. So in order to help preserve the status of those individuals, first thing that we've done is just try to highlight the programs that are available for tax relief for those with limited incomes and elderly citizens. But then we're also considering programs going forward that would further enhance the opportunities for those with limited needs to, or with actually limited value homes as well, to benefit from reduced tax rates. So I won't go into the details of those, but just to say that I think these issues are very much at our heart, and while maybe it's not a specific, assisted living project, that we are trying to assist seniors with more affordable housing opportunities.
Thanks. I just wanted to piggyback briefly on what Diane and Rich were saying about the Assabet River Bluff project. That project was poised to be put on the open market. It's 7 acres. It could have been developed for market rate housing. It would have resulted in 6, 7 McMansions, if you will. But the owners came to the town first, and it took over a year for us to put that together, but we did. And the way we did that was to combine the interests of the open space folks and the affordable housing folks. And of course, open space wanted more open space, and affordable housing wanted more housing units. But at the end of the day, to keep that together, we ended up with 6 acres of open space and 1 acre of affordable housing, creating 5 affordable housing units. So my point is, looking forward, as open space becomes available in the town, let's not just look at it as open space and conservation. Maybe there's a strip along the existing road that can be carved off for whatever number of housing units that can be maybe all affordable or a mix of affordable and market. But let's revisit how we look at the redevelopment of what property we have left in this town and try to accommodate the needs of a broader range of interests, in particular open space and affordable housing. And let's work together as we did in Escott River. It was a successful model, and it was actually one of the primary subjects at a statewide conference for the land conservation groups statewide, and Rich was one of the panelists.
Well, they invited you, but you couldn't come, so.
He spoke much more eloquently than I could ever have.
They took the second choice, but it was very well attended. A lot of people.
That's
Wellesley in particular was talking about how we got it because they have apparently a large property that they're looking at, which has some buildings on it that might be converted to some open space that people want to preserve. So I think there's an increasing interest in that.
And I may be misspeaking, but I think it was at Terry Rothermel's initiative that we have a bylaw, I believe, that whenever we do consider any new open space, that we must also consider affordable housing opportunities.
Yes, when it looked like we were gonna lose the house on the Giroux land, Terry dug around in his files and found a copy, and we came back to the town and said,
Maybe it's not policy, not a
yeah, it's a policy now, it's not a
but
bylaw.
it is the town's policy.
It is town policy. And I think that was good, and I think everybody won on that one too. I mean, we would like more housing, but the family wanted to sell it for a park, and so we did get one house out of it. And it's gonna have a great view.
Out of one side.
And when I began this portion, I was saying that there are things you can do with money, and there are things that you can do from a regulatory standpoint and zoning. So I want to make sure that we hear. We don't have the chair of the planning board here. I don't know if we have another spokesperson, or we've got lots of planning staff. And
I think Linda, why don't you come up here?
But
there you go.
Oh, darn.
this is the microphone for Zoom.
Oh, well, I guess I did want to make one correction, and that is with regard to Article 35. At this point, that will probably not be moved at town meetings, so it's unfortunate. We took to heart some of the comments that we got at the hearing, and also some of the understanding of where we had to go in terms of the MBTA communities, and so we will be regrouping for 2024 with hopefully some solutions to a lot of these questions. I do feel like I'm here with Marcia and Sue backing me up on Zoom, representing the elephant in the room, as it were. And so I think it's wonderful that we have a community now that is looking for support for affordable housing. I think this has been, since I've been on the planning board, a huge change And I am looking for, as planning, we can make proposals, but we are not an advocacy group. And now I am seeing in front of me an advocacy group and a legion of people who will follow up, and a legion of people who will comment on planning proposals with a critical eye to support the community, to achieve some equity and to achieve some development, achieve, I think, some economic benefits to the community, and also to bring on board the environmental and conservation strength that having the proverbial mass transit oriented greater density that I believe will be a big plus for the community. So I just want to say thank you to everyone here. I'm sorry we're not having perhaps a stronger showing at this year's town meeting, but I do believe that maybe I can borrow something that Matt said, that maybe rethinking, regrouping, and coming back again will all be stronger. And I want to thank you all for having this forum and having, I think that we have stepped up a lot of what's going in terms of affordable housing. And I think we need to not only, as many people have also said on this board here, focus just on SHI, but focus on affordable housing and what that can mean in general to the community. So thank you. And I look for a lot of you to be tuning into our planning board meetings. They may seem dry, but we really would like to get your input and comments and feedback before we get to the hearings this time.
So does the planning board have a agenda item for this next year to develop a comprehensive MBTA zoning plan?
Oh, I think Marshall could maybe help me with that one, but that certainly is front and center.
I guess my concern is that Section 30 or Article 35 is small compared to what MBTA might mean. But I'm wondering why we're pulling one small step when there's a big step we have, we're going to have to address.
Yes, it's a big step, and I think that, well, I'll let Marshall address.
Well, I can't speak to the small step, but I'm Marcia Rasmussen, Director of Planning and Land Management. And the state act, MBTA Communities Act, does require the town to adopt zoning. So we have sought assistance in that endeavor. So it's not just the planning board that's going to be marching forward, but we sought help from CHAPA and Liz, what does CHAPA stand for?
Citizens Housing and Planning Association.
Citizens Housing and Planning Association. And they're going to, we are working with other communities, like communities, to develop an outreach program and an education program with their assistance. And then we sought help from the Mass Housing Partnership, and they are providing funds through, and we'll be working with Horsley and Witten, a design firm, to develop the zoning that will go with our MBTA communities. And that will be presented to the 2024 annual town meeting. So stay tuned, there's going to be a lot of work being done over the next year.
Thanks, thanks Linda, and thanks Marcia for those responses. And I'm gonna ask for show of hands. This is the Committed Housing Advocacy Group. Can we pledge here in front of each other that when the planning board has this, I'd say a special meeting agenda in particular, but has an agenda with MBTA communities on it, that they will, number one, let us all know about it, and we will all show up.
Yeah.
Okay?
Maybe on a big yellow sign. Snow.
I mentioned zoning at the beginning, but it's the elephant in the room. It deserves constant repetition that it's the law in ETA communities. Law, and the Attorney General is prepared to enforce it, but the governor is amassing huge resources in the name of housing, starting with a reorganization of state government to create a secretary of housing, and not also something else. Housing in livable communities is actually what the title is, so remember that. And that the commitment of the state government, the resources that would be made available, that for the communities that do the right thing and find a way for MBTA communities to fit in their communities, will be the ones who can have many of their needs met, whether it's infrastructure, water, wastewater, whatever, economic development, whatever other things you want your community to be. That the key is, an important key for Concord and others is the MBTA Communities Law, because the state wants it done, and they are prepared to work very cooperatively with those communities that want it done. So I'm going to hand it back to Liz to conduct the remainder of the meeting.
Yes, so I think that we'll open it up. I think we've heard a lot of information, and so if people have questions or follow-up comments to any of the groups or materials that you've heard, sure, Rick Eifler. I think you might have to come up here and use the treadmill.
I just wanted to follow up on the comment. Commonwealth Avenue, June 10th, Concord Housing Authority is sponsoring a build day. Is it hearing? Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. June 10th, Concord Housing Authority is sponsoring an all-day build event at that house. There are several spots open. We'd like to make sure they don't cancel us for lack of attendance. So if anybody has any building skills or wish they had any building skills, contact Jennifer at the Housing Authority to put your name in, and then she'll tell you what forms you need to get the rest of the way.
Thank you. I remember when we did that at Main Street, and I think there were a bunch of us here. It was a lot of fun. Mary. Yeah, I think so. Sorry. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mary Harden. I want to talk again about sewer for a minute, because Keith is fond of saying it takes a sewer to make a village. But we know that our limited sewer capacity makes housing much more expensive and limits how much we can do. So I just came from the Public Works Commission, and as you know, we've got a study that was done in 2002. It was a wastewater management study that we live by. And it restricts what we can do, or describes what we can do, and as they should, they live by that. In their 2024 budget, they're updating that plan. So that gives us an opportunity to look at what more do we need. And the other thing that they're doing is they're earmarking some money in 26 and 27 to actually build up expansion. The other point I want to make is that sewer, when we go to town meeting, most sewer enterprise fund articles are on the consent agenda, and we don't really discuss them. So it might be a good idea if we asked to take that off of the consent calendar this year and just kind of begin the discussion at town meeting as far as what is our plan for sewer improvement going forward, as we know, because that's so important. So it's an idea. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone on the Zoom, feel free to raise your hand. Or in person.
I just follow Mary. It has been the practice.
Would you please in the...
Yes,
it's not worth the trip. It's been the practice at previous town meetings when we come to the enterprise accounts to pull one out and purposely take it off the consent agenda based on, the PD center was having some issue or whatever. So I think that's a good opportunity for us.
So I do a lot of work in affordable housing and often down in the trenches. I always say like I'm in the arena, right? I'm getting dusty and dirty here. And I know that some of my partners are also that, and I wondered if the housing authority wanted to talk a little bit about your Main Street property and just what it takes. I think it's important to talk about what does it actually take to do one unit of housing. We are a built, no, this is one unit. No, they have a Main Street, they'll talk about that, I'm gonna put them on the spot, I'm gonna make them talk about it. I know they don't want to, Stephanie was really like, but, we're a built-out community, so we try to do this infill development and get a unit in here and a unit in here, and it's hard work. So maybe one of you can just sort of describe so that people can understand just the effort it takes to do some of this work.
Stephanie asked you want me.
Oh, my goodness, please go.
Sorry, and I don't think I said last time, Rick, I float just in case nobody got that. Ready to sit this time. Sit. Yeah. Service target training, if you're wondering. 1031 Main Street, Housing Authority owns the house, has been there since 1980 or something like that, but we've owned it, at least the house was built before that. The house does have room for an accessory dwelling unit, but its driveway access is across a private way that is owned by Concord Village condominiums behind it, which has 20-something, 24 units, I think, in it. And they, we do not have a deeded access to that. It's really more prescriptive access through that, through history, historical use. So we don't necessarily have clean access to a new unit in the back, even though we could build one. So that's that, and the fact that it would connect to the sewer. I don't think a one-bedroom unit would be a huge impact on the sewer, so we'd probably get approval for that. But that's just an example of how one little thing can stop a project. So that project is on hold, unless the town and a lot of other people could get together and figure out a way to make the initial part of that road a public way, probably a long shot. Marcia thinks, I think it's a long shot.
Or if the neighbors decided that a small one-bedroom accessory unit would not really interfere traffic-wise with the condominium traffic that they have.
Oh, we asked that. We met with the condominium. Not a single board member.
That would be another solution besides making it a public way.
Yes, correct. I also discovered an interesting thing about the accessory dwelling unit article. It's a minor thing, but the Concord Housing Authority can't take advantage of that because we're not owner occupied. It's possible that should be mended, but I'm not sure it would actually get us anywhere, so we may not need to. That's just one example. If you look at the housing production plan, you have several properties there. They all have similar or worse restrictions on them. And just, I mean, the hoops we had to jump through to get the little house built on Commonwealth Avenue over a 5-year period, and the funding hoops, and to get one unit. It's just an example of how hard it is to get affordable housing units built, especially on existing land. We may look at purchasing in the future.
Thank you for that. I think it's important for everyone to know just the effort for these volunteer boards, right? So, 5 years at least for that Commonwealth Avenue home. So this is hard work that we're all doing. Great, Nancy.
So I just wondered, what were the biggest hurdles specifically to getting that little house, which is adorable, approved?
The neighbors,
No, I think it's the Commonwealth Avenue she's talking
oh, the
about.
Commonwealth Avenue?
Yeah, the tiny adorable one overlooking the pond with the great view.
Yeah, I mean,
What were the major specific
the
hurdles?
parcel is very, very small and very sloped and has water behind it, so actually fitting a house took maybe a year and a half of Rick's time, who was very adept at these kinds of things, to actually come up with a floor plan that would actually work. That's my observation.
That's design, but not bureaucratic hurdles.
So there were,
You could get a special permit for a two-family because it's in residence C.
right, it'd be a special permit, not as a rate.
And
Special permit
are there
bring neighbors in.
exceptions to just about everything?
Are there what to everything?
Exceptions?
Oh, yeah, you can get exceptions, it's just, and we did, we got a planned residential special permit at Commonwealth Avenue on a essentially unbuildable property to build that house.
Okay.
And then we discovered we couldn't build it, we didn't have enough money to build it ourselves. That got us into the habitat thing. Once we got habitat involved, we realized there was a deed restriction that restricted it to public housing on our existing property, but not on the Giroux piece. So we had to redesign it so the entire house fit on the Giroux piece, which was very tight. So I went through a complete redesign. It almost touches two property lines, and an easement line, so, and a wetland setback line. That's most of the problems in the file.
Other than that,
Sounds like it might have been just crazy restrictions on the property that pre-existed as opposed to just bureaucratic entanglements.
I think there's a lot of factors in place. We talk about the design, we talk about the permitting process. I mean, you know, there's actually no one living there now, right, you know? So there's, you know, like, it's not like it's done, right, to actually get it and then to record it on the SHI. I mean, we're still like 6-8 months out, you know, so, yeah. So it's really, it just takes a long time. Even the 930 Main Street property for the CHDC, which was pretty easy, because there wasn't really much construction. I mean, that was a 5-year project. So none of this goes very quick.
Wow. And it's not just town committees that are the problem, it's the housing process itself, right, beyond the town.
I think the whole process involves so much. It involves the permitting, it involves the actual property. Some property is easier to develop on than other property. And some organizations, you know, the housing authority is a public entity, so it has the public procurement and the construction, and then to set it up so that it's an ownership unit next to a rental property where they still own the land. So there was like a conveyance and a condo thing that had to be set up to sort of organize it well. So I think you have pieces at all levels coming in together to just you know, make it as complicated as it could possibly be for such a little house.
and
That's pretty amazing.
there can also be multiple cycles of town meeting appropriation required, depending on what the project is, that can take literally years to raise enough money.
Yeah. Very helpful.
Someone here in the room had their hand up. Was it Stefan? Was it you? Yep, you come right here. Get the question, Chair.
Thank you. We're talking about the efforts of a lot of town committees and public process. There's a faster way to get housing built, isn't there? A hostile developer initiated 40B. They'll get it done real quick.
You know, hostile is, you know, it doesn't have to be hostile, but I would have to say that the mass housing 40B process is by far the quickest. So, but it doesn't allow the town to influence the control and design. So that's why it's sometimes called possibility, but there's different ways of doing it. But the local initiative program, which is the DHCD, that's very front-end loaded, and you can spend 6-9 months there before you even start the process with the state agencies. But certainly private developers who are, if you're motivated by money, you're gonna go quicker than through some of these, right? You're gonna be optimized on your dollar.
Be less concerned about neighborhood opposition as well.
Well, you're not gonna build, you're not gonna spend the time on that small, cute house on Commonwealth Avenue. Like, no one would do that, right? If you were looking to make any money. Yeah.
I just want to add, 40B is a tool, and whether it's hospital friendly, we try to make it work, and I think it has been successfully used with the Concord Muse development. Travel Pro Residential started the process. It has changed hands a number of times since then, but they invited me to another property that they owned in Pembroke. I went through and critiqued it. I shared slides, pictures of things that I liked and things that I didn't like about that project with the Board of Appeals. And they designed it to what Concord was looking for. The neighborhood that abutted the property was in Sudbury, and they were very vocal, but they redesigned the project to take the units away from that, and then they created a looped walking trail around the entire property, all at our request to try to make a better project. So sometimes the developer is willing to work with the community, and even though it's a 40B that's going to override our local zoning, they are more successful because they are doing it with input from the community. So it can be beneficial.
That's great.
Yep, exactly. I think that community opposition can really kill a project for a developer. Can really hold them up in court for quite some time, some number of years. There are communities that you can see where the appeals that get filed, really the projects never get built. So I think it's to everyone's advantage to work together collaboratively. Would anyone like to make any closing remarks here on the panel? Keith, are you sure?
Well, I just want to keep up Yeah, Liz and I have known each other for a while. And way before Concord. In fact, when I was town administrator in Littleton, I liked the Regional Housing Services office so much, that model, I wanted to join. This one, they wouldn't let us. So we had to form our own. I think we were too far away. We were too close to 495. But in any event, so we started our own up there on a contractual basis. But we were thinking of Liz, and Liz came up and helped us, 5 of our communities work it out back then. I wanted to just pose the question, and it was said facetiously, we don't meet in until after May, when Marcia's gone. This is Marcia's last meeting, but on the subject of when should we meet again, I think I appreciate hearing some feedback on that, and there will probably be things that will bring us together. For example, when the DHCD issues the state's spin on the U.S. Census for 2020, and that's going to be in May. There's a date. Was it the 23rd or 25th of May? So, right, and then they go away for Memorial Day weekend. It sounds like. So, but there will be some late-breaking news, which I think we will probably want to get together and talk about before we break for the summer. And so, my thought is we might want to think about getting this group together in June. I dare not say July and August, but I have to say we met a lot this past July and August because there was a lot going on and a lot to do. So I know that the housing groups can meet when get together in the summer. I would be doing it remotely from Nantucket, but that we had looked at the timeframe of, maybe June, to think about getting it together, because the world will be changing in May, once we know for certain whether we're above or below 10%, and if it's below, how far below, and what does the landscape look like a potential 40B developer. So that's just a suggestion I had.
Yeah, one of the things I'm so delighted to see all of your faces together. I mean, I had to get a hard copy. I worked on this board with Keith. I like hard copies of things. So one of the things I find so confusing, and I've been watching you all for years, but I didn't join until this, is I think I'm loud enough. Don't you think so? Gonna make you work with my spine. That's right. That's okay. I'm gonna sit over here quietly. I'm just gonna say one thing. I want to know who's taking Marcia's. I want to know who's taking Marcia's place.
I think.
No. Could I have some of it?
You can sit right in the front row.
Oh, okay, that sounds good. Oh, this is such a silly thing. All I want to say is this, Keith. What I would like is a one-page piece of paper that says, Liz says, Lee says, Matt says, Keith says. Down the line, it says what you're doing and what has happened in the last 2 months, whatever you decide. But some kind of quick, simple, one-page bulletin that comes out to anybody in Concord who's interested in the subject. Because I think that's what's lacking, is, a lot of things didn't happen because you wouldn't really have information. And I think information is key to movement. And so tonight's the first time I've kind of seen everybody together, talking about a project, but I think people need to be kept up to date. People need to feel in the loop. And we all have 1,000 emails. And you heard the moan when you said, oh, they're going fast. That was innocent people. But it's...
After I spent a day last week writing a piece for the fridge.
Exactly. She said, so what I'm saying is, how do we inform each other in the most simple way possible about what all of your efforts are? That's what I would like to see.
And I think we would undertake to put that in the CHS newsletter if it came out periodically.
Okay.
We can clearly add it.
Well, you fellows can decide where it comes, but I think that's what I find people saying to me. Like, I just asked a question tonight of something he said in the meeting today, and he didn't have the answer, and it was like we both looked at each other like, we should know this information. So if we don't know it, how can we share it? So we really need to become better communicators. I think as a group, that's a major goal for all of us. Wonderful. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you, and we certainly take the challenge, or speaking on behalf of unpaid volunteers who are supported by paid staff, who will figure out, between us, we'll figure out a way to get information out to the community that wants to know, just as all of us want to know.
Yeah, instead of one person, we put it up on a thing, and anybody, these things can happen quickly. It's simple.
I'll volunteer right here. We'll put a page on our website every time one of these comes
Okay, so will all the people on the panel commit to sending, what feels feasible to you, every 2 months, every 3 months, once a month?
Whenever Nancy asks me for
That's only twice a year. I didn't volunteer yesterday. I don't want it to be complicated.
The League of Women Voters had a session on housing, which is now on our website, that Stefan moderated, Jen Polito spoke at, which was so good. And it answered a lot of questions for people. And so a good thing might be to refer people to that particular video. It's easily viewable, and it provides, I think, some important information on housing in the town. And you know what it does? It also, because Mike Barrett was there and and Carmen Gentile, who has big interest in housing, and Simon Cataldo, who's learning. You know, I mean, each of them brought a perspective and a depth of perspective that might otherwise, it would be a very informing thing.
Well, we
Because-
could have your names, we could
Yes.
have your websites, you know, and if you want to include that. But I think the idea is to keep simple and to keep people moving, because we have a beautiful website, you have a beautiful website, the authority, everybody has beautiful websites, but nobody has the time to go to all of these websites.
Yeah, I think there's the difference between sort of pulling information or having information pushed to you. I think you're sort of talking about having something that summarizes
Absolutely.
what's happening and pushed to you.
There's too much coming at people nowadays.
Yeah.
And you have to synthesize things.
You know, one of the things that struck me tonight as I was listening is, maybe we're getting there, is prioritizing things, hitting a bullseye or two. You know, what of these initiatives really will bring us what we see as material significant gain? Is it the Road Depot? Is it Christopher Heights? Like, what is it that really can coalesce us around meeting what we want our goals to be, what we want this town to be, and go for it? Because what I see is, in addition to what is everybody doing, everybody's doing a little bit of, a lot of a little bit. And so how do you say in our strategies, you know what, they're all great, but we're gonna hit the bullseye. Here are 2 or 3 things, and we're gonna take perhaps the long view, maybe it's a 3 to 5 year long view, but we're going for it, these 3 things. That's just, you know, less about me as a representative from the Housing Authority, and more as a citizen of this town to say, what are we really looking to do? And how does it get us where we really want to be?
Thanks. I will thank again all of you for being here tonight, all of the boards and committees represented here, all those that we've given rounds of applause to for the great work that they do for us. And now let's give our round of applause to you for coming Thanks very much, and we'll let you know when the next Housing Roundtable is and other meetings that you need to show up, that we all need to show up at. Thanks, person. Yeah, I'll take a motion by Mike, second by Rich to adjourn the trust.
Second.
We're on a hybrid call, so I actually have to have a roll call. So on that motion, Linda Escobedo.
Linda's.
Aye. Mike Lawson, Rich Healy.
Aye.
Keith Bergman, aye. And if you have did you open?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to close.
Do I have a motion to close the meeting? Okay, and a second, I think I have a second. All in favor, Stephanie Kroback, aye. Rick?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
So adjourned.
Anyone else have a point?
Select board meeting is adjourned.
There you go.